Welcome inside another edition of Celtics Roundtable on CLNS Media. CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audio, video coverage of the Boston Celtics. Welcome inside this Thursday edition of Celtics Roundtable, everybody. Evan Valenti alongside Alex Kungu from CelticsBlog and my man, Lucky's Pipe, coming at you here on a Thursday with a little breakdown for you. And as we expand our show and try to make it a little more focused for you guys with a couple more segments, this is going to be reserved for our breakdown sessions here on Thursday. And tomorrow, more analytical stuff coming, but more of a what we call, not a tirade, but a more debate show. Okay, so stay tuned for more on what each day is going to bring. Today is a breakdown. We're joined by Alex Kungu of CelticsBlog here on Celtics Roundtable. This show is powered by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com right now, /Lakers Nation. Our listener league is totally filled up. Can't even get in anymore. So use Lakers Nation as the one to get along with in order to be a part of the CLNS family as a part of FanDuel. But we're with Alex Kungu, Lunky's Pipe. Alex wrote a great article for CelticsBlog earlier this week detailing how Al Horford, everybody's like, is he worth a max contract? Is he not worth a max contract? One of the most, I would say, in terms of like controversial players in the Celtics, one of the most on the roster. Alex, you've sort of outlined how Al Horford makes Kyrie Irving's job a little bit easier, no?
Yeah, I actually believe so. One of the things that you notice that when you watch the Cleveland Cavaliers is that Kyrie Irving ran a lot of his pick and rolls with Tristan Thompson. And for those not familiar with Tristan Thompson's game, outside of rebounding and rolling hard to the basket, he's not very creative with the ball. So sometimes he'll get into situations where he would run a pick and roll and the defense would just collapse on Kyrie. Or if he passed it to Tristan too early, there's really nothing that he could do. He couldn't really reinitiate offense or anything like that. So I argue here that playing with Al Horford instead of Tristan Thompson actually allows Kyrie Irving to have more fluidity, because Al Horford is going to attract attention because of his ability to shoot, because of his ability to be a playmaker. So it's here with the Celtics where I think you could see Kyrie's game diversify a little bit because he doesn't have that burden to do most of the creating when he runs pick and rolls.
That's a good point. I like the fact that, as you mentioned, Tristan Thompson, like the floor is going to be more spaced out for Kyrie because of the way Al Horford can draw everybody away from the rim. And like we always look at Isaiah Thomas's, free throw attempts, right? Because that skyrocketed once he joined the Celtics system, once he joined Brad Stevens' offense. I have a similar feeling that's going to be, a similar jump for Kyrie Irving, a guy that, can get to the rim at ease, but when you have a lot of bodies in there, when you have Kevin Love in there, but he can space the floor. When you have Tristan Thompson in there, it makes it a little bit harder for him. Al Horford is not really going to help him play make and in terms of trying to draw attention. But I think in terms of space on the floor, Al Horford helps Kyrie tremendously, because when Kyrie goes one-on-one, he's going to have a lot of open space of floor to get once he gets by his guy to explore himself. Like we talk about, passing out of that, there's more potential for that when there's not a lot of bodies around there.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for all the give and go looks they're going to have, pulling Horford out to the 3-point line and just doing that dribble handoff thing they do, and Kyrie could give it back to Horford and still do actions off that. And I just like you're saying, the spacing is going to be so much better than he was seeing in Cleveland. Even though they played with a lot of shooters, they still it was mostly traditional ISO sets, so it's going to be.
Well, we saw a lot of point Al Horford in the playoffs, and now I'm starting to picture now that Kungu's kind of laid it out, I'm starting to picture Al Horford initiating the offense with Kyrie on one side and Gordon Hayward on the other, and it's okay, you're gonna turn Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward into off-ball shooters. That makes me sort of excited.
Yeah, it's also something to bring up that in the playoffs, Kyrie Irving was actually in the 92nd percentile on off screens, and he was actually in the 100th percentile of dribble handoffs. Except
that's pretty good.
Except those
100 percentile, is that good?
Yeah, but the problem with that is that he rarely got to run those plays in Cleveland. They made up under 10% of his shot type. So I do think in Boston, what we'll see is not necessarily him being asked to change his game, but him being asked to score in different ways. And it's not going to be him being burdened to do that. It's more so of him being created for in a way that just wasn't available in Cleveland because their offense was more reliant on just LeBron running everything.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a problem for a guy like Kyrie Irving. Like it's nice to have a guy that can get the ball wherever you want it to, but sometimes when you're capable of more, it's nice to have more. As there, in terms of like Kyrie being different, how you talk a little bit about that in terms of like how Boston will use him like to score off the ball and stuff like that. Is there anything else that you've kind of explored that is different about Kyrie Irving in Boston than what we've seen of him in Cleveland?
Yeah, I think one thing that you watch is during the regular season, it's a little weird the way the Cavaliers play. Like they really don't try, and specifically when I say they, I mean LeBron James. There's a lot of times when he's either running the point guard or if he gives it to Irving to run the point guard, he won't move. Like he'll just stand in the corner and just wait. And when you're playing with Tristan Thompson and then you have LeBron James not moving, you're essentially going 3-on-5 sometimes on offense. And I think what you'll see is that Kyrie has another level of vision. He has another level as a secondary play creator as well, that in Boston's system where he'll always be moving, where he can even get post ups, which is something he does well on smaller guards. You'll see a different level of offensive versatility that we didn't get a chance to see in Cleveland.
How much tape on Cleveland did you watch to write this article, Alex? I'm curious.
I've watched maybe about like 12 to 15 games, give or take. Sometimes like I watch 12 to 15 full games and then
fast forward when he's not on the floor, right? You just don't even need to watch.
I just shadow him. So like if he's not on the court, I'm not paying attention. So I just do that for those games, and then there's certain games where it's like you can kind of tell like how it's gonna go. It's like a little lethargic, so I just like not watch the full thing. But yeah, I usually try to get at least 10 games for most of my pieces.
It's a good move. But the thing about Kyrie in terms of like what he can unlock, the playmaking is obviously one thing that people talk about. I mean, his dribble game is unbelievable. I just think in terms of creating out of that, there is like a level of Kyrie we haven't even seen yet, we haven't touched yet, and we haven't been able to even we've sort of fantasized what it's like and fathom what he can do, but like it might be a little bit different than what we all have pictured. That's the one thing that about Kyrie that gets me really excited. There's this whole bunch of potential with his ability to break down his defender and then get to the next level of defense and like what he can do after that. There's so many there. I mean, he's an unbelievable finisher at the rim, and like usually the right play is like Kyrie, just go for a layup and see what you can do with it. But if there's another ability to unlock of him to like pass out of that to the open guy and pass around the perimeter to find the best shot, which is what Boston does a lot of the time. You see Golden State do that a lot. San Antonio does that a lot. Houston does that a lot. A lot of these higher end offenses. I'm curious how Kyrie kind of fits in that equation. There's been talk about his lack of or his inability to create for others, like his lack of vision in certain ways. Have you seen that at all when you've watched him? Is it like Zach Lowe and Howard Beck did a great podcast about Kyrie coming to Boston and how there's like one pass that Kyrie can't make. It's like the cross court pass as he's driving to find the shooter in the weak side corner. Like I'm pretty sure if he spends enough time in a system that generates that kind of look that he's going to be able to find it. Am I nuts?
No, actually you're not. And I think a good case study to look at is Isaiah Thomas. Kyrie Irving and Isaiah Thomas are comparable type of players, both kind of like smaller-ish guards. Both came in as score-first guards. When Isaiah Thomas came to the Celtics, there was no one, and I mean no one, who thought he was a playmaker. There was no one who thought he could run a top 10 offense. And what you saw is that as he got used to that offense and he got used to where his guys were going to be, you saw him become a more creative passer. I would argue that the same thing is very possible for Kyrie, who comes in younger with a lot more talent to like create space, not just through his speed but like his ability to just create his own shot in general. I think also playing with another wing creator, which Isaiah Thomas never even got a chance to play with, all that's going to combine for a lot of spacing. It's going to combine for a lot of open lanes, and I think that as he gets used to the offense and he gets used to his teammates, you will see that there are certain passes where, though he hasn't done it consistently in Cleveland, he can do it in general.
Before we keep moving, I want. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, he's going to command so much, people coming down at him. So I think if the coaching staff, like, we believe in our coaching staff, so hopefully they'll, like, bring it up to him, like, yeah, if the person in the corner is pulling in, like, just keep your eyes open. In most cases, him making an acrobatic layup probably is going to go in. So that's still good, and he probably is going to draw contact and get a foul. But yeah, if that guy in the corner is open, I don't see why he can't do it. I'm not sure how important that, like, singular skill is, and I think other players potentially could do it like Smart. So I wouldn't say, like, to not do the trade because he doesn't have that pass. But
yeah, that'll be insane. Like, Kyrie is an unbelievable finisher in traffic. He's literally, if not the best, he's one of the best. We want to talk about the best at something. FanDuel is the best at fantasy sports for everyday fans because football is back. That means FanDuel is back with new contests starting every week. So if your favorite player is out, like let's say you drafted Julian Edelman in your season in regular fantasy is sunk, well, FanDuel has you covered because there's a new opportunity next week with a brand new team, and there is something for everyone. Lots of contests to choose from with entry fees starting as low as just $1. Just pick a contest, choose your team, and watch your score in real time and watch that money come in. Look, folks, it comes down to FanDuel. I have my own strategies, and that I'm playing against you guys. I really can't explore those strategies with you in depth. Here's what I'll tell you, though. It's just a little tidbit. As you figure, because you're going to play me in these leagues, I'll give you a little taste. If you're ever playing the Jets and you're an offensive team, think about maybe picking up some of those players. And I'm not just talking about, like, let's example, Derek Carr is the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders this week. They're playing the Jets. I'm talking about, like, the lower guys on those tiers. Not like the Amari Coopers, but like maybe Michael Crabtree, a guy that doesn't cost a whole lot so you can spend other ways. I'm just throwing it out there. Over 2.5 million players have won cash prizes playing fantasy sports on FanDuel. Sign up today. Go to FanDuel.com, click the Join Now button, and enter the promo code LakersNation. I know it's different. I know it's weird. Our listener league is already completely full. So help out the CLNS family and go rob money from Lakers fans. Steal all their money. Try FanDuel for free today. No deposit required by visiting FanDuel.com and claim our free contest entry by just using Lakers Nation as the promo code. Void where prohibited. The one thing about Kyrie Irving, and Lucky, you have touched on this a ton. You've been all over this for the past, I want to say, a week. Is about, like, maybe it won't, and I think we heard it Monday, maybe. I'm not sure we've talked about it already on this podcast, about how there is a 3-point jump coming from Kyrie Irving. Like, the fact, and I don't remember the stats that you rolled out. You rolled out a bunch of stats about how, and in terms of, like, dribbles, like a 1-dribble pull-up or a no-dribble pull-up for Kyrie, like, his shooting numbers on those statistics are absolutely mind-blowing. And I got to probably hypothesize about that Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, and everybody involved in that have probably looked at those numbers and said, look, the more shots like this, the more shot types like this we can generate for Kyrie Irving, the more he's going to score. And the more he's going to score, the more it opens up for everybody else like Gordon Hayward, like Jaylen Brown, like Jason Tatum, like Al Horford, like Marcus Morris, like Marcus Smart. Life becomes a lot easier when you can find your team's biggest strengths, your players' biggest strengths, and exploit them. And Lucky, I think you've been one of the first guys on this. Like, maybe it won't be Steph-like, but there is a jump in Kyrie Irving coming, and the Celtics are banking on that jump at not at a position, but in terms of, like, shot type that the NBA is exploding with, and he could end up being one of the best ones.
Yeah, I think, like, we saw with Smart, like, the coaching staff is willing to experiment, and, they were just like, he came into the league, he played defense, and, like, bombs away, boy. Take those threes. You see him, you're open, take them. So I'm like, let's, we already know Kyrie's pretty good at shooting threes. I would not hate if they're like, hey, let's see if we can get him 10 threes a night. Maybe half of them or more than half are catch and shoot, and he's open. Like, that would be pretty ideal. I think he compares favorably to pretty much any elite shooter. If you're just looking at percentage, his attempts are around 6 now, Yeah. How do you see that, Alex? Would you want to see him?
Yeah, I was going to say, Alex, you've watched a ton of tape. Are we crazy here? Is there a chance that Kyrie takes a monster leap? Not like a Steph-like shooter where he's just completely unconscious, but like when Kyrie's left open, you can't feel good as a defensive unit.
No, I definitely agree with that point. One area specifically is his catch and shoots. He only shot about 2.3 last year, and he shot that at 48%. So I'm imagining a situation. Yeah, it's like, so I'm imagining situations
deadly right there,
where we have maybe Gordon Hayward, now Horford, running point, and with that, as long as you're filled out with spacers, like the type of looks that Kyrie can generate, because the Celtics are, I think, top in the league, or at least top 5 in the league in 3-point attempts. They get them up a lot and they shoot them a lot, and it's a big part of their offense. So I think right now Kyrie's at 6.1. I think that could easily jump up to between 8 to 10, and I don't think his percentages will go down as long as he's shooting, like good shots. And I think for a majority of the time, even in Cleveland, where it was just such a one-dimensional offense, he was able to get a bunch of good looks. And not to mention, even when he was covered tight, according to NBA.com, he got about 1.9 3-point attempts when he was covered tight and shot those at 40%. So this is a guy who he can shoot very well.
Buckets.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing him pull up from like 30, shoot off open catch and shoots, whether guys are coming at him or not. And unlike some of our other shooters like Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley, who during the playoffs when defense got a little tighter, they started their percentages just dropped under league average. I don't see a situation where Kyrie Irving just drops. Like he's legitimately an elite shooter, and I think Boston do everything they can to get him as much open looks as possible.
Yeah, my only question with that is like, does Boston have enough shooters to like help him like space that defense apart so that when the ball starts humming around, like all of a sudden there's Kyrie Irving with a wide open 3. Like, are there enough shooters on the Celtics to make that a maybe that doesn't even matter? But my only question would be, like, I don't know if Boston has enough respectable 3-point shooters on their roster to make that like sort of feasible. You know, like I just if Kyrie's gonna be out there with a bunch of shooters, like you look at his lineup with Cleveland, like it was him, LeBron, Korver, and Love. Those are all either really good offensive players or dynamite 3-point shooters. I don't know if Boston can kind of replicate that, but the flip side is Brad Stevens is going to make that happen via some strategy. That's my only hang-up. Maybe I'm nuts on that, but I think there's just the lack of shooting on Boston.
No, I think that's a good point, but also something that I would bring up is that sometimes we forget that even though a certain player might not be like a good shooter, NBA defense, like defensive players don't always think about that all the time. So if they just see a pass get whipped to their man who's open in the corner, like their natural inclination is going to be to run at them, regardless if they're a good shooter or not. And that happened even for Marcus Smart, who we know is one of the worst shooters maybe in like NBA history. And even then, people would still run at his shots, even in the playoffs. So even though we might not have like the shooters, the fact that teams know 3-point shooting is part of our identity and we look for those shots all the time, sometimes it's not even going to matter if it's a 35% shooter or like a 40% shooter, because they're just going to close out automatically. It's like second nature to defenses. So I do think it's something to watch for, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to impede our ability to get open looks.
Yeah, and you can consider like they got Horford, who's Mr. like 60% 3-point shooter in the playoffs. They got Gordon Hayward, who's pretty solid 40%. I think Jalen, for most of the year, he was around 37. When he was starting, it was in the 40s, so that's good to see. He might be doing that.
And Smart just magically learns how to shoot in the playoffs. It's like the third year consecutively, which is crazy.
Yeah, his summer highlights tapes are looking fresh, so that's gonna. I've already predicted that to go up.
Jalen was like 45% from the corner too. Like he was extremely efficient in the corners, and that's exactly where you talk about that pass that Kyrie needs to develop, right? Well, if he can find a way to get the ball to Jaylen Brown in the corner, like from the strong side of the floor to the weak side of the floor, where there's no help defense, like that could be a really excellent play for Boston if Jalen's 45% from that corner is going to hold tight. Like that's going to be a great play for them. And if they can keep that sort of spacing around Kyrie, I'm thrilled with those kind of looks. Like again, you're right, Alex. Like it doesn't really matter who's on the floor shooting threes. If anybody's going to go up for a shot and there's a nearby defender, you're going to try and block it with the best you can. So I guess your point's more valid than mine. But I just maybe Kyrie bumping it up to like 8 to 9 to 10 threes a game, I think would be like pretty. Not drastic, but it would be a huge increase for him. That could actually end up helping him dramatically in this case. But, I mean, Kyrie, in terms of the offensive package, does everything you'd want to do. Did you look at his defense at all?
Yeah, I looked at his defense, and, I mean, there's not really much. Like, in general, it's like if he wants to defend, which is not very much in the regular season, he'll defend for big match. He kind of reminded me of Rondo in a sense, how Rondo would just not play defense for certain matchups, and then all of a sudden he'd go up against Chris Paul and he'd be all NBA. All of a sudden he'd be like that. I see it.
TNT Rondo.
Yeah, like when Kyrie goes up against someone like John Wall, he's gonna try, and when he's in the playoffs, he's going to try. Like he was like really getting into like Jeff Teague in that first round series, blocking his shots, talking crap, fighting through screens. But in general, he's going to be someone that's a slight bump up from Isaiah. I think the big difference between him and Isaiah is that you don't necessarily have to build your defense around him because, like NBA teams, like even in the playoffs, like there's not going to be a team that's just going to say, okay, we're just going to try to isolate on Kyrie, and that's all that's going to be. Because he is a good enough defender that he can hold his own, especially in the finals where he stuck with Curry, he fought through screens. He's a guy that when motivated, he's a passable defender, and really, that's really all you need from him.
Yeah, they're not going to run a zone to like isolate Kyrie Irving on like the worst side of the floor so that if he gets screened, they can still recover for it. Like that Chicago series where they ran like a 2-3 zone and stuck Isaiah in the corner was like, okay, this is what we're going to have to do to make this work. And luckily for Boston, Rondo got hurt and had to worry about losing that series, which would have been a huge upset. One of the bigger upsets in NBA history. That's going to do it for this episode of Celtics Roundtable here on CLNS Media. I want to thank my two guys coming at me with great stuff today. Alex Kungu of CelticsBlog and my man Lucky's Pipe of the Twitter sphere. If you're watching us on YouTube, hey, what's up? Hit the like button and subscribe to CLNS Media if you're watching us. If you're listening to us on the go, subscribe to the Boston Celtics news feed, which is available on your favorite podcast app, whether it's an iPhone, Android, whatever, on Stitcher, on iTunes, whatever. Or you can download the CLNS Radio mobile app, and if you, like we're doing this whole segment of thing, we have a Monday mailbag. If you want to ask a Monday mailbag question, in order to get a guarantee that you will get your question answered on our show, give us a 5-star review on iTunes, and in the comment section of that, write your question, and we will answer it guaranteed right here on the show. You can tweet at us at CLNS Roundtable on Twitter to get your question answered right in the comments of the section on YouTube, whatever. We're on CelticsBlog now, so if you miss us on YouTube or you miss when we tweet out the audio version, check us out. Check CelticsBlog. We'll be there eventually. I want to thank my guys for joining me today. We have another show coming tomorrow. It's going to be a debate show. Good debate. Jaylen Brown. Are you Jaylen Brown or Team Jason Tatum? We'll answer that coming up next on Celtics Roundtable on CLNS Media. See you next time.